2 weeks ago, I didn't even know this Kolsol wire cable checker existed. I received a call from my wife when I was out of town telling me our underground sprinkler system didn't work and how to find a solution to track down the break in the cable, which turned out to be. I'll get into more details of that as we go along. Now, I am not going to go into forcing you to listen to it work. There are other videos. You can hear the beeping and how it works. This is more along the lines of where I sort of went wrong, how I got back on the right track, how I found it, how I solved the problem. The back of the box shows you the rest of the story with this, I guess. You got your receiver, you got your transmitter, and comes with batteries and a carrying case, so very nice. Now, back to my story. The electrician, it turned out, was coming the next day after my wife spoke with me, so I had her ask him to check to see if we had power at our pump, which brings water out of the lake for the sprinkler system, and to check to see and make sure there was power at the relay and make sure that the relay wasn't working. He did this for us, and his response was, there's power at the relay, no power at the pump, run a new line, which really tickled me because we're talking about 220 feet of line to get back to the entry point into the house. Under that rock is the pump that pulls water out of the lake. You can see the lake in the background there. There's a 220 outlet there in a waterproof box, and the outlet had to be opened up to be able to access the wires and track the signal. So I'm assuming if you've gotten this far, you have some basic knowledge of wiring and electricity, and you know to turn off the breakers to make sure the line doesn't accidentally get energized, and you know how to access the wires on an outlet. The other end of the line is on the side of the house on the right there, about 25 feet farther down, and that's where the 220 line comes off the relay in the house. So somewhere between the pump and the house, there is a break in this line. The question now is how we're going to find it, and that's when I started looking up YouTube videos and came across this Kolsol cable finder. My first attempt to find the break was with a metal detector. I didn't know about the cable signal tracer at that point, and this was not a great idea. The three flags you see on the right there, or in the center of the field, were my finds with the metal detector. I had a good strong signal, and 3 digs, found nothing, not even a stinking quarter. So I would certainly advise don't waste your time with a metal detector if that should happen to cross your mind. So with a little research, I discovered that there was such a thing as a cable finder, and the first one I found was roughly $700, which was absurd. Then I came across these less expensive ones like the Kolsol for about $45 on Amazon. Now, there's got to be a difference between a $700 unit and a $45 unit. I asked an electrician friend of mine in another state what he thought of it. You know, the couple I sent him, he said, get the Kolsol, the $45 one, and I did. Now, this is the transmitter. It's got a battery tester on it, and then switch the switch to the other position, and it transmits a signal. You have the 2 alligator clips. As I said earlier, I pulled open the outlet and exposed the wires. I was able to clip onto the black and white wire on the 220 line in the outlet and turn the transmitter on. So now I was set to move on to the next phase. This is the receiver. It's a compact unit. You turn it on, you have a volume adjustment on it, and the probe on the wire is what you dangle over the ground and move back and forth to find the strongest signal, which should indicate where the wire is. And you've heard some of the sounds, I'm sure, on the other videos. I did my first dig based on this, and we'll get into that in just a moment or two. But first, just to show you, the unit also comes with a fabric carrying case, which was very nice, and you can also clip the two pieces together, the receiver and the transmitter together, so that you can just toss them in your bag if you are taking it out. So very convenient and done well. This was my first strike. It's a couple feet to the right of those three flags I showed you before. I traced it out with the receiver. It worked as expected, or as they promised. One problem: at the far side of this mark, I lost the signal. So my assumption was the break was there. Silly me. Okay, this first dig, yes, I hit the cable. Did a little digging, the cable was there, but there was no break. So now I had to figure out how to differentiate a false from a positive cable. And that's where we'll go next. Okay, as I said, the cable was there, no question, and was able to find it readily. What I did discover from this, I would actually, because the signal would sort of fade in and out, and as I got farther from the source, even more so, but the cable or the receiver, once I got past this, I did spend time on my knees instead of walking. I actually held it against the ground, and that got me the signal back. And I was able to trace it out. Then after a while, I was able to stand up again and do the original waving the receiver back and forth over the cable. So be prepared. When you get a indication that there's a wire there, check the other side a little more carefully so you don't just keep digging holes all through the yard. As I said, I got a 220-foot line here. That could be a lot of holes. And it's, as you can see, it's undulating backyard, different depths. It's also New Hampshire, and there's all sorts of rocks and boulders under the ground to, I guess, interfere with the signal, because that appears to have been what happened. The next indication of a break was at about 170 feet from the pump. That's a fair distance, so I'm getting impressed with this thing. And it lost the signal right under the deck here. You can see the support for the deck. That aluminum plate is sitting on top of a concrete pier. So it appears when they dug the hole for the pier, they damaged the line. The frustrating part here was I could only find one end, And apparently the two ends were in proximity to each other for a while because one, the end showed signs of arcing, and two, the pump had been working for a while. So go figure. So in the meantime, we did a little digging. I found the line. Now I had to figure out how to find the other line. So that's where we go next. Now that I found one end of the line, there was no way I could find the other end of the line with the transmitter connected to the 220 socket on the pump. So I now had to go down to the relay, which is at the other end of the line, open the relay, and I now clip the transmitter wires to the black and white line on the relay. This was a shorter run. I only had to follow it out about 50 feet. Turned out the wire was right under that brick there. I dug it up. I had to cut the line there, and the section that went under the deck I had to just rebury. I could not pull it out. I mean, it was, I guess, sealed in by the concrete. So I now have two ends of the line. We're just about done, and we're good to go and finish this up. I now had both ends of the 220 line exposed. I picked up 2 splice kits at Home Depot. I had some underground cable in the house, so that was not an issue. I had to do about 4 feet of trench there, as you can see, and it now follows the periphery of the deck, and it patched up very nicely. The process was relatively simple and straightforward. I spent about an hour and a half on the first day finding the lines. I had to wait till the next day to get the patch kits, which I picked up the next morning. It took me about an hour to neaten up the trenching and get them spliced together. The wife took care of reseating. I think that's about 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours tops for a first time out with this deal. Frankly, I was very impressed with the device. So, in retrospect, one, be careful. Just because you think you have the cable, check the other side of it. Make sure indeed you have the break. Because remember, if you have the break, it's not going to transmit to the other side. If you can't find the other side after the break, you may have to reverse the process and go from the house out to find the line. So, had a couple issues here, and the main issue is don't even think of using a metal detector. No way, that didn't work and wasn't even close. Thanks for watching. So, our system is up and working, and here's the proof. The splice worked, the grass is starting to grow back, and I have nothing but praise for this Kolsol cable detector.